Good afternoon or good morning again, depending on where you happen to be today. I appreciate you taking the time with us to go through this webinar. My name is Matt Wilmore. I'm the Senior Director of Product Marketing here at Moto. And today, the topic for our webinar is a playbook for driving admitted student engagement. This is a subject that we've been talking about for some time. I believe some of you were fortunate enough to join our last webinar a few weeks ago, and this is a follow-on for that with some actionable plays that you can use today in your campus app to drive engagement. I've been at Moto for just over 3 years, and my job at Moto is to make sure that all of our customers understand what Moto has available for them to help you create great things in your app, especially in this current climate. We are really living in unprecedented times, and it's our mission at Moto to make sure that you have the tools available to help drive admitted student engagement and other core needs that you have at your campus. So, as I mentioned just a minute ago, we do have a playbook that is associated with this that will be available at the end of this webinar. And I will encourage you to, excuse me, I will send this out just at the very end of the webinar. It has detailed plays, checklists, and questions you should be asking yourself for each of the plays we're going to cover today. And again, that will be available at the end of today's webinar. So before we get into the individual plays, let's look at overall what we're trying to do here. So you'll see here by the plays we have, we're really trying to give you some actionable things that you can do in your app today to help drive admitted student engagement. Just as a bit of a backstory, we have seen really incredible changes with how admitted students and even potential students are engaging with universities leading up to the fall semester. COVID-19 has turned everything on its head, and admissions departments and marcom departments at universities are now having to do everything they can to make sure those admitted students follow through and enroll for the fall semester. We know that by speaking with the hundreds of education customers that Moto has, and so we wanted to put together some plays that you could use in your app to help change that outcome for your institution. So we're going to talk about all 15 of these plays today. Things like your app is a new campus, reinforcing the value of the degree, virtual events and virtual campus tours, making your app the go-to resource, even things like quick polls and opt-in channels. But instead of reading through this, let's go through each of these plays. I want to show you and tell you a little bit about how to achieve this. So the first play is simply that your app is the new campus. And so we're going to look here at the app as we go along. And I just wanted to sort of describe what this idea is. And so in short, because there's so much uncertainty about plans to return to campus, this reality is hitting students that they may experience a portion of their academic year away from campus. And you now face this reality where there is this distributed campus where a given student may be learning and pursuing a degree partially on campus and partially at home. It's not so much that they're only at home during the semester and then we're back in the fall like everything used to be. There is a decent chance that we're going to face this again, having to send people home again. And so this idea of students being in a distributed learning environment is really important. And as such, your app needs to reflect that as well. This is also a great opportunity for your admitted students to not just use the app as a marketing tool, as a recruitment tool, but as a companion throughout that student's journey, not only now as they're admitted students, but throughout enrollment, throughout NSO, and even their entire academic career. While this is a huge challenge for institutions to face, this is also an incredible opportunity for you to look at the app in a new light and think about how the app doesn't serve just a specific marketing effort or purpose, but the entire career of a student. And one important part of this to also keep in mind is NSO. As people get into the fall semester and they think about NSO and having that online experience, that is something that will likely be online as well. So how can we think of the app as not just for admitted students, but admitted students into the NSO experience, into the fall semester and even their entire career? What's really fantastic about the platform is that the app can actually evolve with those students. Instead of setting up something like an admitted student persona, and we'll talk about that in just a minute, you can set up a class of 2024 persona as an example, and then have those admitted students then see a new student orientation experience and then see a first year experience and follow that with them. And in effect, the app can evolve right in front of them, instead of them being forced to go to a different app or needing to select a different persona or experience in the app. The app can evolve with them. So also important is just considering how each part of that student experience, from admitted student up to even graduation and the alumni experience, how can you bring that into the app? And things like student health and wellness resources that typically may have been things you did on campus, or you go to the health center. Given that it may be a distributed campus, how could that be part of the app? And how could you actually show the value of attending your school in the app, given that the students may not be on campus, to leverage some of those great tools and resources that you have for people who are typically on campus? And just to think about here, what does a day in the life look like for a student who's on campus? And what does a day in the life look like for a student who's distributed? What is different? And how can the app best reflect that and give a great experience for those distributed students? The second play, at least I want to talk about, is this idea of creating a unique experience for these admitted students. It's certainly possible to set up a screen or some modules in your student experience, or maybe just have one persona in your app, and just add some admitted student stuff in there. But there are definite benefits to having a unique admitted student persona or experience in your app, and I'll show you what I mean here. So this is my fictitious Regency campus, and if I go and look at my app experiences here, I can see I have one for admitted students as well as current students and alumni. If I tap on the admitted student experience, this is an entirely different persona that we have set up specifically for admitted students and their families. And so you get some instant benefits out of this. For one, all of the content can really be focused on them. You don't have to worry about content that appears to current students who really don't care about that specific type of content. In addition, all of your communicate messaging, it can instantly be segmented just to people in this persona. So you don't have to worry about making or sending out messages that some people in the persona don't find interesting. Everybody in this persona is interested in your admitted student content, so it's easy to focus your messaging right away. This is also, like I said, something that you can evolve with the student as you go along. So you could have an experience that is really just for admitted students that becomes their orientation experience, that becomes their first year experience. So you can continue that experience all the way through for those same students and their families. One other thing that you can do here is think about the use of credentials. Now, typically, at least from what we've seen from our customers, when you come on campus in the fall or right before then is when you get your login credentials. What if instead we gave those credentials out now to admitted students? That does provide a little bit of extra work for the identity and access management folks. What that also does is not just say, here's sort of this side experience for you as admitted students, we'll give you the full thing later. This can essentially be their early access to the campus experience. Once they're logging in, you can do things like individual personalized notifications and content specifically for people based on who they are or specific attributes. And this, in effect, pulls them in to the campus experience earlier and may increase their odds to actually enroll because they already feel like part of the campus. And of course, with our Modo Analyze product, you can use this to, in real time, see the engagement for this persona and all the content. This is part of the Admitted Student Starter Kit, which we released a few weeks ago and is available on our website. If you go to motolabs.com/COVID-19, you can see all that. And then for all of our customers, go to iMoto at i.motolabs.com or use the iMoto app, log in, and all the starter kits are there, including live versions that you can play with yourself. But what you see here is the example of an admitted student experience where it's all about the admitted students, things like a new student day, and I'll talk about virtual events in just a second, information on my checklist, exploring the campus, quick polls to keep them engaged, even things like what motivate them and feeds that are really about them. So you can create this experience that's really focused on them. Every time they open up your app, they see their admitted student experience. And it's really just about them. Our next play here is really about the value of the degree. And this is something that we believe that parents, basically they understand. They've been through this and they know the value that's there. But the students may need some reminders and encouragement about that value. The cost of attending is especially pertinent today. And so these admitted students and families have to take a really hard look at affordability. And so reinforcing the value of the degree itself is really important to remind those users there's so much more to the degree than simply having it or simply having attended. Things like participating in the school's mission and values, networking opportunities, lifetime earning potential, all are great factors to consider and include in your messaging to communicate not just the cost, but the value of attending. So there's extrinsic values. There's also a lot of intrinsic values of attending, things like the networking that I talked about. And it's also important to look at other departments that may have something that's really valuable to communicate about those admitted students and have them be part of this. And I'll be referring to this throughout our conversation today, is the idea that this is not something you should or need to do alone. There are departments and really authentic voices throughout your campus that provide fantastic content that get admitted students and their families excited and ready to enroll for the fall semester. Next play is developing your engagement strategy. So this is really important to think about how you're going to not just have the content here. Certainly the content like this admitted student experience that you see is part of it, but what is your whole engagement strategy for admitted students? Now, likely you have an engagement strategy for admitted students today, but considering having something like this in your campus app, how does that look different? And thinking about the fact that students may be having most of their admitted student engagement be digital or virtual, as opposed to on campus, and extending into orientation and perhaps the fall semester, how should your engagement strategy change to reflect that reality? This is another opportunity to get other departments involved. There are certainly many departments, different colleges, different groups, different areas that are involved in communicating to admitted students ahead of enrollment. This is a great opportunity to pull them in to conversations and see what they're doing to adjust for this digital or distributed reality, and just take a good hard look at your past or traditional engagement strategy and see if it's really still pertinent today. Find what aspects have been successful and figure out how to approximate those or replicate those in a digital environment. And so things like, how often are you reaching out to your users? How often are you re-engaging them? What calls to action are associated with each of your engagements? And how do you continue to move your users up the ladder of engagement going forward? And how do you do that in a digital manner? The next play is on hosting virtual events. Really exciting for us. We have a ton of fun with this. And I'll show you here in our admitted student experience, we have this new student day coming up. This is something we're already seeing customers like University of Findlay do in their app, where they'll have these new student days that may have been in person. Maybe it's an overnight or it's a 2 or 3 day event, but now they're happening online because people can't go to the campus. What we're also seeing is that schools are not doing this once, but multiple times to be flexible with people's schedules and other things like that. So you have the opportunity to leverage your app to do this very, very well and really connect with your admitted students. Ahead of the event, you can do things like send rich push notifications to remind users. You can have an opt-in channel. I have an example here where I tap to get reminders and updates, and I have an opt-in channel just for new student events. So somebody could opt into this channel and instantly get all the updates pushed directly to them around what's going on with new student events. You can have things like embedding webinars or live sessions. Either they are embedded here or you can link directly into the other app. You can have videos, you can have all types of content. And what you'd also be helpful to do is have information about the event itself. So if you have, let's say, a 2-hour event and we're having campus housing do the first session, John, who's an 05 graduate, have that in there so they can learn who they're talking to. They can follow up if there are any information or any things they missed, or maybe they happen to miss the event entirely, have the recording on the screen. Even things like quick polls to measure the satisfaction with that event, and at the bottom, things like links to help people get more information. This allows you to have a really concise, tightly packed, highly informative and engaging virtual student event. And a lot of our customers who have been doing these are seeing actually higher attendance numbers from these than they would have traditional on-campus ones. So this is a really exciting thing that you can do. You get that quick feedback, you can modify or fine-tune it and then come back on the next one and do it again. So this is proving highly effective in engaging with those admitted students and getting them excited, and again, moving towards the next step. So some things to consider here. What metrics are we using to measure the success of these events? Is it just people in the webinar? Is it questions being answered? Is it quick polls, things like that? Those are things to keep in mind. And again, what are those calls to action? for each virtual event? How are you pulling people forward and getting them to move up that ladder of engagement? And what other departments should be involved? The next play, I want to talk about our virtual campus tours, and this is an especially really interesting trend that we've been seeing. So Moto, as you may know, has had the ability to do tours in the app for a very long time. And back in my days, when I was at the University of Notre Dame, we made use of that and had a number of tours, even ones that we had students create. However, because the campuses are closed and because there are no tour guides, how do you have something like this online? To compound that, research shows that admitted students and families often cite the campus visit as a really key factor in whether or not they want to enroll, especially campuses that are maybe not as well known but have a fantastic campus. So that the virtual campus tour provides some ability for you to preview the campus to the admitted student and their family. And it's not really so much about saying, here's what you don't have, but it's here's what you will have. Here are all the exciting things awaiting you in the fall semester. And although we know the fall semester may not be right in August or September when the semester starts, maybe a little later, it's showing them what, again, reinforcing the value of the degree, all the things here that your degree is, that your tuition is paying for and what you get out of attending, but also previewing what is to come, getting them excited about coming back to campus. This is a great example to engage. To show an example here, if I tap on Explore Campus, here's an example of a virtual tour. So we have this as part of our admitted student starter kit, but there's a virtual tour starter kit that's by itself if you just want this. And this is, again, just publisher screens. It's likely that you have departments or some content on campus that's already been created for some type of purpose. You can repurpose it here in this. And this is not designed to replace a professionally created campus tour that might have 360 views, things like that. This allows you to set up a virtual tour extremely quickly and start to engage those users. And for some campuses, they already have the professionally designed tour and they just want to embed that. That's great. But for those who don't, or for those for whom it will be many, many months until that's available, this gives you the ability in very short order to set up a tour and get those students talking and excited about what's to come. And so this is a tour that just shows, as an example here, different buildings, and you can tap on any of the buildings, and there's a template that you can fill out for the building itself. Things like slideshows, things like a 360 view coming from Google, all that stuff can happen in your app very, very quickly and can provide an extremely critical part of that engagement strategy. What's also really nice about the virtual campus tours is that there's an exciting opportunity to involve some of those authentic voices that you might have on campus. And I'll talk about the authentic voices later in another play, but think about alumni, think about student tour guides, think about others who really know this campus and have some unique stories to tell. Instead of you or the Marcom office being saddled with putting a tour together, how could you involve other people from the campus to help and lend their authentic voices? How could you have students give the tour that they would want to take? And so this isn't just about engaging those admitted students. This is connecting those admitted students with really great stories and really unique perspectives about your campus that you may not have otherwise tried to create or tried to source. So this is a great idea to involve the rest of the people in the campus to add to your admitted student experience and to get people excited about what's coming in the fall. Our next play here is around storytelling. And this goes back to what we were just talking about with the virtual tours. We know that storytelling can be an extremely powerful tool for connecting with admitted students' underlying motivations and drive to pursue higher education. Not just, I want to go to the school, but why? What are the base reasons there? And you have, again, these authentic voices throughout your institution, whether it be alumni success stories, whether it be professors, whether it be other people from your university who have great stories to tell about the difference it made to attend your school or the difference made just by the school in general. And so this is a great opportunity you have, especially for admitted student experiences, to go seek out those voices and have them contribute to the app. It could be a video at a tour stop. It could be a crowdsourced video for some type of virtual event. It could be a blog post or sharing those stories on social media, or sharing them as push notifications in the app. There's all types of opportunities to find those voices, have them tell those stories, and use that as a tool to get to the heart and the mind of why people are coming to the school, or why people have applied to attend your school in the fall, and get them really excited at the core about attending. The next play here is to personalize the user experience. Now, what you're seeing here is a semi-personalized experience because this is specifically for admitted students. But thinking beyond that, how could we have a personalized, more highly engaged experience for each user based on attributes? So there's several tools in the Modo Campus suite that you have available as a customer to make use of that. Things like authentication attributes, directory attributes from Communicate Premium, tailored string content, all these things that can come out of knowing not just that the user is an admitted student, but who they are and individual attributes. And so we talked about that earlier in the webinar, but the idea here is that this is a great experience to start with, but if we move that beyond into a really personalized, individualized experience, users feel like, again, they're part of the campus. This is not just something for admitted students, this is something for me as an upcoming student, if you want to call it that. We also have tools like XModule and XComponent, which allow you to drive screen content based on web services that you may already have running. And what this does is allow you to have a unique content on the screen based on the individual user, attributes they might have, even things like where they physically are. So personalizing user experience can take that one step further into creating a highly engaging, highly individualized experience for that user. But one other thing I wanted to mention for this personalized experience is that once you have something like Communicate Premium, now you're sending individualized push notifications too. So now it's not just, hey, don't forget we have this event, but hey, Joe, don't forget to submit this form. Now you're reaching out to individual people to move them up their own ladder of engagement and getting them excited. And that is extremely motivating and powerful for pushing people forward. One other thing I'm going to mention here in terms of plays is making your app the go-to resource. And so by that, we had a similar message when we were talking about the crisis response starter kit that we had done earlier this year. There's all this information out there, and your campus may follow a strategy, which is that each department has their own information, and it's really up to the student and their families to go find where that is. Instead of that, consider an alternative strategy where you point everybody to the app. And so the app becomes that one place that admitted students and families know they need to go to find their information. We've seen schools like, again, University of Findlay, who have done this very, very well. And to the point where if you go on social media forums like Facebook, related to that school, if somebody asks a question, they'll point back to the app and say, if it's there, it'll be, if it's in the app, that's what's going on. So that possibility certainly exists for you to drive all the content back to the app and change the behavior of your users such that they just know the app is where to go. That becomes incredibly easy for you to have other engagement opportunities with those same users because they're already going to the app to find out when the next new student day event is, when deadlines are coming up. Opt-in channels that they're subscribed to, they've grown accustomed to going back to that app for information, and so you can leverage that for other engagement opportunities you want to leverage for them. And so part of this is gaining that buy-in from departments to ensure that your app is the information hub, not just setting it up, but actually going forward and a little bit of cat herding there to get all those departments bought in and feeding information to the app. The great thing about the platform is that, of course, you can delegate content, you can delegate communicate channels, all types of things to those contributors. So again, you're not the one who's having to do all this. You can involve the entire campus in creating this really great, cohesive, unified, admitted student experience for those users and their families. And then things like quick polls allow you to solicit feedback, very quickly for things like those new student days, as well as other events. And was this information helpful to you? Do you feel like you know where you're going? Do you feel like you know the next step? And that instant feedback can help you very quickly tweak and adjust and evolve the content of your app in real time. Another play here is crowdsourcing authentic content. I've talked about this already, but it's worth having a play by itself. Some of the best voices about what make your school great don't really come from the comms office. I mean, they do a great job. But in addition, it's from those experiencing life as a student, as a staff or faculty member, as an alum, and even from other admitted students. This is a great opportunity for you, especially in this digital environment, to solicit, collect, curate, and then share some of those voices with others in a variety of means. And all that comes back to this idea of getting people engaged and focused and set on attending in the fall. So I guarantee there are passionate members of your community. Find those and engage those to create stories, to create messages, to create content about what it's like and the benefit of attending your school. And then use that for things like push notifications. Use it for things like content in online events. Use it for more targeted engagements. We have a new feature that is just on the cusp of being released, which is proximity-based notifications based on a geofence or a beacon. Now imagine if I didn't get a story just on an alumni success, a successful alumni, but one that was in my town. That can have a greater impact than just somebody who is successful, which is great by itself, but the more you can target it based on the individual person, based on the individual characteristics, if you are targeting people who are planning to pursue a business degree and you're able to have success stories from people who have graduated with that degree, that's a fantastic way to engage and get people excited about what's to come. Your alumni network may be a great source that you can tap into to get some of the authentic voices, students as well. And those who are enrolled are excited about the school, they're ready to go, and you should leverage those voices. And like I said earlier, you can actually get other voices from your school itself, including admitted students, to contribute. One of the things that we have here in the starter kit is this idea of what motivates you. And so the idea here is that we want stories not just from faculty and staff and alumni and students and success stories, but their own stories. And so what you can actually do here is set up something using Modo Photos, which is new in Modo 3 and available to all customers, which lets users actually upload their own photos and stories about how, what drives them. What is their motivation for coming to school and for attending your school? And so using something like this, you can enable your admitted students not just to get information, but to contribute their own, share their own stories. And I'll bet if you did this, you would not believe the type of stories and the type of passions and motivations your admitted students would have for wanting to attend your school in the fall. And that can prove to be an incredibly strong motivator, especially given everything else you're trying to consider about affordability and safety is, of course, taking those into consideration, but also thinking about, why am I going? Why do I want to do this? And helping them reconnect with that base desire to have that degree from your school. Next play here is quick pulls. And this is an obvious play, but something I wanted to bring up. So quick pulls are a part of Modo 3. Every Modo 3 customer has this in their pocket. And the idea with quick pulls is that they're one question Likert scale, it's sort of the 1 through 5 scale, or multiple choice questions that you can use to very quickly create and get feedback. Creating a new quick pull survey and adding it to your app takes literally about 60 seconds. And what you can do here is put something in the poll, or put a poll in your application. You can see I have a couple different use cases here. This first one is what excites you most about attending in the fall? Home game weekends, making new friends, and exploring campus. And you can choose one of these. And I'll bet if I say home game weekends, I might be the only one. Oh, somebody else has said they want to make new friends. And so you get this real-time feedback. And so you collect this data as well. So one thing that we've seen some of our schools do already is use this data to influence how the app evolves. And if you think about this question here, home game weekends, making new friends, and exploring campus. Let's say 80% of the people said exploring campus was their most exciting thing. You know now that you should invest more time and resources into things like tours or other ways to explore the campus once they arrive. Versus if they say something about home game weekends being the most important, now you should really focus on something like a home game experience in your app. So these polls not only enable you to collect that feedback, but they also provide some insight that isn't necessarily gleaned from traditional analytics. This provides you that point in time top of your head question. And what's nice about this, it's not a big form where you have to sit down and it's 5 or 10 minutes. You can get in, get out. And we have customers like Berkeley College who are using quick polls already and doing new questions every week, maybe twice a week. And so they're getting this pulse of feedback from their users. And if you think about even 1,000 users who respond to a quick poll on a given week, if you do over 16 weeks, you've got 16,000 points of data just from that you can use to inform what the school should do, what content should be in the app, how students are feeling, all types of things that you can do very, very quickly, all for 16 minutes of effort on your part. So quick polls are fantastic. Everybody in Modo 3 gets them. You saw another way in which we're using that for our virtual new student day. For each session, I have how informative was this housing session. Let's say John was a good 5 out of 5. I can tap on that. And you don't have to necessarily give the overall score. You can, but you can also just say, thanks. You still get that data, and you can still use that and say, hey, John, you know what? You had sort of a 2 out of 5. Let's see what we could change. Or if you had a 5 out of 5, great job, keep it up. You could have additional quick polls, which part was most informative to you, and you can collect additional data there to get that feedback. But quick polls are incredibly easy to add to your app and provide a ton of value right away, especially for thinking about the admitted student experience. This is a great way to every week, maybe twice a week, put something in your application to get the sense, get the pulse of your admitted students. Ask them what they're most nervous about, what they're most excited about, what do they wish there was a session on. That can drive your admitted student engagement right there, and the people are telling you what they want to see. Another, I gotta say, one more fantastic thing that we've seen customers start to do with quick polls is there's sort of a subconscious element there. I talked about being able to get that data and being able to evolve your app based on the feedback. Another thing that we see from quick polls is nudging behavior, and the idea here is that we're seeing this in things like COVID-19 responses where you're posing quick poll questions like, how often are you washing your hands? Or how long should you wash your hands when you do? And that's actually one of the polls that we include in our crisis response starter kit, which is also available for free for all Modo customers. But what's interesting about that is that not only are we, if everybody says the wrong answer, there's more education that needs to be done in the app. But beyond that, it's serving as a subliminal reminder to users that they really should be washing for the recommended 20 seconds. So not only are we collecting feedback and using that to evolve the app, we're providing a nudging tool, a little less overt than a push notification saying, hey, don't forget to complete this form. The quick poll could be, have you completed your form yet? And if people say no, and the response is not thank you for your feedback, but hey, don't forget to tap on this link and complete that form, that can be that nudging behavior there too. So you get a lot of ways to use quick polls to both collect feedback and drive user behavior. If you can't tell, I do like quick polls a lot. Moving on to opt-in channels. So this is a fun, really easy way to make use of your application and make use of Communicate. So opt-in channels have been around for a long time. And for those of you not familiar, opt-in channels are part of Communicate. Every Modo customer has access to to opt-in channels as part of Communicate. And opt-in channels are just that. They're channels that users specifically opt into or out of. And so what opt-in channels do is allow you the ability to create very focused channels on specific areas of interest. So instead of, in addition to, let's say, an admitted student experience, you could have opt-in channels for things like international students, transfer students, families, non-traditional, all those things that might be a little too specific for a broad audience like admitted students. Even though admitted students is a selected audience of your broader campus app audience, you can refine that even further using something like opt-in channels. What's nice about opt-in channels is that only the people who are opted in really want to get that message. And so you can be very specific with those messages. So if you're doing something for, let's say, an honors program, you can have an honors opt-in channel, and you can get very detailed about honors, specific requirements or deadlines, but you can guarantee that everybody opted into that channel cares about that information. And so if we look at the new student day, and if I tap on get updates, this is an opt-in channel for new student events. So perhaps people did not want to get updates on new student events, or maybe they've already attended new student day, they could opt back out. But again, opting into a channel ensures that you are going to get messages specifically for that topic. And so you should leverage those for specific topics related to admitted students. And so in thinking about the question, like what messages are you really hesitant to send because they only pertain to that little portion of your audience, opt-in channels are the answer for that. The other thing I'm going to mention here in terms of another play is, and I've alluded to this a little bit on the webinar, is creating this sense of urgency. And we know from loads and loads of research, as well as the fact that your admitted students are likely being recruited by other schools, there needs to be a sense of urgency upon the student and the parents or the families to move forward. It is our belief that the school that does this is the one most likely to get those students and to keep that attention. It's important not just to keep people moving forward, but also this helps you keep your school top of mind for that student who may have been admitted, but perhaps, and may have accepted, but perhaps only has a deposit sitting between them and another school perhaps. So creating the sense of urgency keeps your school top of mind and motivates those users and their families to keep moving forward. There's probably dozens of steps between I am an admitted student or I've accepted towards showing up for NSO, whether it's in person or virtually. How do we keep people moving towards that as opposed to saying, well, they're accepted, I'll probably see them in the fall. How do we keep them on that track, keep them excited, and keep them with this sense of forward motion up until and during orientation in the fall? So it's important here to find campus stakeholders and engage them to identify opportunities in that admitted student schedule to drive those users to take action. For things like Moto 3 and Communicate Premium, you can actually schedule content for the future. So if you have your admitted student schedule, engagement schedule, you can create a lot of that content now, including quick polls, other app content, communicate messages, and schedule that to be released in the future. So it's not quite like a drip campaign, but it's more just a preset scheduled group of messages. And as people move in and out of opt-in channels, move in and out of the persona, the people who are in that at that time are the ones who are going to receive that message. So this helps you to not constantly be looking at your calendar, looking at your watch, thinking, oh, I have to send this out right now. You can actually schedule those for the future. And then it's also helpful here to identify where action on the behalf of admitted students and their families has been slow or sluggish in the past, and how might you augment that response time using the app? How might you be able to push action a little bit quicker than before? Next play here, and we have 2 plays left. The next one is all about Analyze. And so all of Moto customers will be familiar with Moto Analyze. It is our built-in analytics tool and allows you to gain really great insights into user behavior. What's really nice about Analyze is that, especially if you have your admitted student experience segmented into a different persona, you can very easily go into Analyze and see that engagement in real time. Not only the persona itself, but seeing modules, individual screens, communicate channels, things like that. All the things that are focused around admitted student, Analyze will in real time tell you what's hot, what is trending, what's not really getting the traffic you think, how many people are opening up your messages, and even your external links. So if you link to something like a housing forum that is not part of Moto, but it's embedded in the app, we track those too. So you're able to understand in the app and linked from the app what people are really looking at and what they're not. And we do send an email out every Monday night with a summary of your application's engagement, but you can always click into that or go into Analyze anytime, day or night, and look at that engagement real time, whether it's the past hour, today, last week, even the last 3 months, and see what's going on. This is a tremendous tool to use, not just looking back over the past year or so, but looking back today, looking back over the last few days, the last week. Where has that engagement been? Where is it changing? And what do we need to adjust to keep that engagement up? Because everything is changing so rapidly with COVID-19, and because we're having to send out so much information through the app and digitally, it's super important that we use Analyze, not just periodically as a report to your CIO, as an example, but use it proactively to see what is being engaged with, what messages are hot or not, and then make those adjustments as you go. But Analyze gives you that ability to do that. That's a good tip for everybody. And then our final play, certainly not the least one, but an important one, is not to forget the desktop experience. As you see here, are unabashedly mobile first, but there's a great experience here for the desktop to be considered as well, especially the fact that they are all at home. If you're on campus, naturally you're going to be walking around campus with your phone in your hand, and so mobile is of course the obvious place to go. While the majority of admitted students still use their smartphone as a primary device, a complementary experience for desktop is really important, not only because those admitted students are at home on their desktop, but especially the families, the ones who may be paying for that degree, may not be mobile first, like those incoming students. So we want to make sure that we cater to them as well and think about their needs and how they're most likely to interact with your institution through the app, and that may be on the desktop. Fortunately, we have a great suite of features to enable that. We've continued to improve on that desktop product suite. We actually just released a new feature on Monday, which allows you to have use a collage screen as part of Publish and have a sort of a 3-column setup as opposed to the traditional 1-column, which makes for a phenomenal looking desktop experience. And of course, there's already features in the app that let you differentiate the user experience depending on the device type they're using. So you can have an experience like you see on here on this screen for mobile devices, but on desktop, maybe there's different links, different layouts that you want to have for that. That's perfectly fine. And that's part of the core product, that you can have those different experiences depending on the device type. So it is important here to consider desktop as part of this. Analyze, of course, allows you to segment your traffic based on device type. So you can use that as well to say, how are people engaging really on mobile versus on desktop? And that's an important factor there as well. It's also important to survey your users to understand when they use desktop versus mobile. We even see this when school is in session and there is no coronavirus out there, where students may prefer to do certain activities, registering for classes, things like that, on desktop versus mobile. And so it's important to understand where students may be expecting to engage with you over desktop versus mobile for some activities where you may just assume that they're all doing everything on mobile. And that also helps you think about the experience, how you could better promote some of those features. There's all types of things you can do out of surveys like that, but it's important to know where students at least expect to get certain things done on mobile versus desktop. And it's also important to, in a broader sense, think about your campus portal. A lot of the portals that we see out there are aging and not aging very well. And we've had a number of schools who have said, you know what, I'm done with this old dusty portal. Let's just use Modo. And they're actually using Modo both as their mobile campus app, as well as their desktop experience. And again, like I said, you can have different experiences for mobile versus desktop. We have some schools like Florida State who are doing exactly that, where their mobile experience and their desktop are very different, but it's, a little secret, it's the same platform underneath the covers. It's just different experiences for mobile and desktop based on their own research. You can absolutely do that too. And so again, thinking not just about admitted students as an experience, but thinking about the whole app experience and that your campus is the new app. Think about the desktop side too, and how that plays not only for admitted students, but into orientation and their entire career as a student at your school. Those are just 15 plays that you can use today to create a better admitted student experience. We talked about your app as a new campus and not thinking of it just for admitted students, but that's sort of a nice place to start. We talked about creating unique experiences, things like an admitted student persona, as opposed to just having a module in your regular student persona. We talked about reinforcing the value of the degree, not just the cost of attending and having the degree itself, but what comes with that, what especially intrinsic things about having that degree are there, and communicating those as part of your messaging. We talked about the engagement strategy and how that might be modified from a traditional one where people are coming to campus to one that is entirely digital, and how you can leverage the app to drive that engagement. We talked about virtual events like a new student day, putting those in the app, and schools that are actually seeing higher engagement numbers from those than they had on the traditional overnight or 2 or 3 day events, and how you can actually use your app to do that right now. We talked about virtual campus tours and how a huge amount of students are using the tour as a means to determine if they want to attend. And if they can't attend the school in person, how can you deliver that through the app? We talked about the power of storytelling and how you have all these authentic voices throughout your campus that are eager to tell the story, and that you should leverage not just to talk about the value of the school, but what gets people excited about coming to your school every day. We talked about personalizing the user experience, which is going above and beyond just having an admitted student persona into having users log in and having things like Communicate Premium and X module really individualize and elevate that experience for each user. Oops, sorry about that. I clicked way ahead. We talked about making your app the go-to resource and not having a scattered admitted student resources throughout university, but directing everything back into the app as one place to go. We discussed crowdsourcing authentic content and finding those voices throughout your campus, finding alumni, success stories, other admitted students even, and having them share their stories and reconnect with what is really driving them to attend. We covered quick polls, which are extremely easy to add to your application, great to get feedback, and also great for nudging behaviors as well. We covered opt-in channels, part of Communicate. Every Moto customer has access to opt-in channels, which allow you to create very specific, targeted notifications for specific interests, things like honors, international, or transfer students. We covered this idea of a sense of urgency that we want to keep our people moving forward. We want to keep your school top of mind such that they're always thinking about you between now through orientation and enrollment when they're actually paying for tuition there. We covered Analyze and how that can be an extremely valuable tool to measure engagement and not to use it just retroactively, but proactively and looking in there all the time to figuring out all the adjustments you're making and how they're affecting your engagement analytics. And lastly, but not least, we talked about the desktop experience and how that should be considered as part of your admitted student strategy and how students may be, and their families, especially maybe looking at doing certain things on desktop versus mobile and making sure you're aware of that as part of your strategy. So those are the 15 plays. There are probably 15 more we could come up with pretty easily, but these we thought were some of the best ones that you could use today to start driving your app experience, your admitted student app experience. So I said at the top of the hour that you would have a playbook, and I will hold true to my word. If you go to motolabs.com/playbook, you can download this playbook immediately, and it has all screens like this. So not just the app is new, not just the play, but a discussion around it, a checklist for things to consider, and key questions you should be asking yourself and other departments about that play and to see how you're achieving that. So that is available for everybody today. We'll send an email out as well. I'd like to remind customers and everybody really on the call about additional resources that we have for you to be successful. iMoto is our customer portal. Any Moto customer can log into this and get things on our COVID-19 resources. Our Moto user group, which meets twice a month, including tomorrow. Support center, training, idea portals, showcase for all of our examples, all types of things that are here for you, even things like a customer marketing kit. So as you get ready to welcome back students for the fall or want to do even digital engagement for your new app, here are great examples of and tools that you can download and use today to market your app. Training Resource Center, which is just from the training videos link. Pico Resch, who's our training director, does a phenomenal job of putting together training materials for old and new features alike, and that is all available to customers at iMoto. We have a brand new showcase that we just launched that is available with tons of examples, beautiful examples of how to use the product. And for Moto3 customers, you can download all of the examples we made and just upload them to your own app. So we have wireframes for all these examples so you can just drop it into your app and start building right away. Like I said, we have the marketing kit to help drive adoption and the starter kits, which are part of the COVID-19 resource, things like admitted student, crisis response, virtual tour, and additional starter kits we have in the works to help drive that further. All these resources are available for all customers. And if you are not a customer yet, let us know. We'd love to talk to you about how we can help you really drive this admitted student strategy. The last thing I'll say today is that we really want to be there to support you during the pandemic. We know this is really unprecedented time. You may be operating with a skeleton crew. You have all these demands being placed on you. Let us help you. We have hundreds of years of combined experience doing this. We have the tools, resources, manpower at the ready to help you. So please do not hesitate to reach out and ask us or let us know how we can help. We are here for you, I promise. And of course, go to motolabs.com/COVID-19 for more information in our Coronavirus Resource Center to get more information about how we are helping you respond, best practices from customers, access to the starter kits, videos, all types of things, including this webinar that'll be there. And with that, that concludes our webinar, and I thank everybody for their time. Now, we do have a few minutes left. And so what I'd like to do is look at some questions. Oh, we do have some questions. So one question is, does the app work internationally? So yes, the app does work internationally. We use AWS globally, and we have customers throughout the world, including in places like China and Australia, South Africa, Europe, of course, the United States, and Canada. Does it work with WeChat? So Andrea, I will follow up with you. I'd like to learn more about what you'd like to do with WeChat before I can more accurately answer that, but I will absolutely follow up with you on that. And so how do quick polls integrate with analytics? That's a great question. So it is, right now, quick polls are not part of Moto Analyze. Where you create the quick poll in Create, you can see that data right there. So you create the poll, and then right within that, you can download that data. What's also nice about quick polls, like most everything else in the application, it can be delegated as well. So you can delegate a quick poll to a specific person. They can go in there and see that data, and of course download it immediately as a CSV. But the quick poll data is in Create itself. And last question is, how do you get access to Analyze? So as a Moto customer, you have access to all the products, including Analyze. If you happen to be somebody who is a delegated user, maybe you only have specific access to, let's say, Create or Communicate, what I would recommend, Teresa, that you do is contact your app administrator, or you can contact Moto support, and we can show you how to get access to that, or get in contact with your app administrator on how you might get access to Analyze. That is all of the questions I have. And so with that, I want to thank everybody for their time today. Again, this webinar is being recorded and will be posted online very shortly. The playbook, again, is at motolabs.com/playbook. I'll put that up here again so you can see that. We will send an email out with the playbook, but you can go here right now and download that playbook for yourself. And with that, we're going to call it a day. Thank you, everybody, so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. I look forward to seeing everybody on the next webinar, and anything that we can do to help, please let us know. Appreciate it. Thank you.